the funk right now, but headed home to 100-degree temperatures and some very, very hot baseball ahead as the Cleveland Indians, the surging tribe, comes to Camden Yards this weekend for a trio of games. Jim Rosenhaus covers all things Indians and calls their games. He is in their 10th year now with the tribe, and certainly onward and upward with Tito Francona's tribe. Jim, this is a hell of a season for the tribe out there, and I don't know that it comes as a shock, but when these kind of years come together, especially with young players, it really is about a bunch of really good things happening.
Yeah, and it's funny because last spring, heading into 2015, they were on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and they're saying that the Indians are going to win the World Series first time since '48, and it didn't go well. They were okay; they finished above 500, but it didn't go as well as expected. And now all of a sudden, this season, it has just been a wonderful year, and even with some significant injuries that they've had, they've plowed through, and they they'll play this weekend at or near the top of the American League. So it's really been something, and it goes back to that good starting pitching. That's been their foundation for a couple of years, and that's been even better than I think they expected, and they've scored more runs than they thought they would, or at least maybe outside observers thought they would.
If in the spring you would have said Kluber would be amongst their worst starters, you would have said, wow. I mean, he was supposed to be the guy winning the Cy Youngs and stuff. And I don't know that we've seen his best. I know it's been a little better lately than it was in the early going because we saw you guys a couple of weeks ago. What feels like a couple of weeks ago now. Becomes a long season at this point that we came through Cleveland. I'll tell you, watching them play and day by day, it's a real pleasure to watch Lindor play. Every time I watch him play, and there's a lot of teams like that. When we play Houston, I watch Correa, I watch Altuve. I'm sure when you guys watch us, you see Manny Machado, and we hope all the flu bugs gone by the time these guys get home this weekend. But just an exciting young player that I think reminds me of 20 years ago with the Baergas and the Loftons and the Alomars and everything that got tied around that team, that it really does come from within and from young players.
Yeah, and that will always be a key, I think, based on the market size for the Indians. They have to do a good job with their player development, and that had actually they had gotten away from that a little bit. Their drafts were not producing what they needed, but that has changed probably the last 6-7 years. They've had better drafts, and now you're starting to see some of that come to the forefront. And you mentioned Francisco Lindor and then some of the others. Isn't it a great time to watch the great young infielders in baseball right now? Not just him, but Xander Bogaerts, and you mentioned Correa, and of course Manny Machado. And
hey, we got two of them. We got to throw Scope in there now too. He's hitting 300.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny because we saw. I want to say when the Orioles were in Cleveland, J.J. Hardy was still hurt, so we got to see Machado play shortstop, and you almost wish you could see that all the time. I'm sure that's the topic of discussion down here, but. Man, there's some good young middle infielders in the American League and baseball in general.
Jim, a lot of changes, right? I mean, I came through Cleveland last year. We did 30 ballparks in 30 days, and Mark Shapiro and, of course, his father, Ron, I've known them forever through the Baltimore pipeline, and he moves on after being there what felt like a generation, quite frankly. He was there a long, long time, and I guess Tito as well coming in. If this thing ends with another parade in Cleveland, that is if they don't burn it down with the convention there this week, but if this ends with a parade, write the story for me. Tell me how this whole thing came about, because this really has been a whirlwind of things, but I would say Francona is a huge, huge part of this, right?
Absolutely, and that changed things because they had a stretch where it was 3 90-plus loss seasons in 4 years, and since Terry has come on to manage this ball club in 2013, there's been the one playoff appearance, but also it's 3 seasons over 500, which that hadn't happened for a little bit, so that consistency was good.
We're familiar with that here, Jim.
Yeah.
We've been in 14 years of nothing here, so right. It really feels good when you're in first place in July. It does. It's rarefied air, really.
So, but he's been able to build it up, and they have this young pitching, and now the lineup's catching up with that, and so it's everything's clicking at the right time right now. So they're trying to figure out how do they maximize this opportunity, because as you know, there's a lot of times there's a window that you have to work within, and they're in it right now. They have good young pitching, and they're scoring enough runs. do they have enough to win it all at a time where they have some really, really good pieces?
Jim Rosenhaus, voice of the Cleveland Indians radio team, joining us here. Of course, the Tribe in for 3 very, very hot ones this weekend. Bauer and Bundy, Tomlin and Gausman, and Kluber and Worley over the weekend. Certainly seeing Bundy on Friday and Worley on a day when, you might be doing a game in your bathing suit. I mean, it is going to be hot this weekend, and certainly on Sunday. This is not, first place sort of rotation for the Orioles. They're trying to find themselves. The bats went cold in New York. They've had incredible illness all week that even Buck Showalter hadn't been around as well. The Tribe may be picking on the Orioles at the right time. Run me through these pitchers a little bit. We haven't seen a ton of Bauer or Tomlin. Certainly Kluber, we're very familiar with his ceiling, but part of the success, as you've said, has been this rotation. We're expecting to see good pitching in the Heat this weekend here.
Yeah, and there's some depth to it. They went into spring training, actually, and other teams are probably shaking their head, but the Indians had more starters than they had spots in the rotation, and the guy you'll see, the Friday night starter, Trevor Bauer, didn't make the rotation in spring training. That's how deep their pitching was. So they began the year with him in the bullpen due to an injury. He moved into the rotation in late April, and he's been tremendous. He's a young pitcher they got from Arizona. It's taken him a little while to figure it out at the major league level, and he's still learning, but his stuff is tremendous, and he's getting better every time out. Tomlin's that kind of seasoned veteran who he's battled some injury issues, great competitor, and he does it a little bit differently than the other pitchers on the staff because he doesn't throw quite as hard as they do, but his command and hitting his spots is impeccable. And then Kluber, of course, the former Cy Young Award winner, has great stuff, and he's been throwing the ball extremely well. Won the All-Star game, which was kind of neat for him. And so there's some good things happening for him, too.
Did he get to keep the warm-up jersey? That's all I'm interested in. Those I still have to go on the internet and order me one of those warm-ups to some degree. I don't know which one I want, but I want one of them.
You like those, huh?
Yeah, I'm a throwback Padre guy. So, anything that yells Winfield and Randy Jones and, old school Garvey and Gwynn, I'm all for it. For the trading deadline, we had the Yankees here all week, right? So, I'm talking to all these New York guys, and when the series began, of course, the Yankees were dead, and it's going to be a fire sale. When the series ends, they're right back in it again, and who knows what they're going to do. But certainly for the Tribe being one of these teams, I don't know where the strengths and weaknesses would be. Certainly, the Orioles would seem to need pitching more than the Indians would in dealing from the bottom of the deck, but the Indians have a more stacked farm system. What's going to happen in your crystal ball over the next 2 weeks here to make the Tribe even better than they are?
Well, obviously you never know if it can happen, but I think they're going to target a bullpen arm. If you look at depth on a ball club, they could use a bullpen arm, and particularly a lefty. They really haven't had a good left-handed reliever that they've been able to count on all season long. So that's kind of unusual in the major leagues. But I think
Chapman did pitch in Ohio, right? I mean, for a little while. I'm just saying.
Yeah, believe me, that's one of the names, him and Miller. But obviously with the Yankees playing better, who knows if they're still going to be available. But the one name that popped up earlier this week was Jonathan Lucroy. The Indians had an injury to their frontline catcher, Jan Gomes, and so Lucroy, the fine catcher for the Brewers, his name has popped up, and so maybe that's something that happens. And one of their key injuries this year, and they've had a good year offensively anyway, but Michael Brantley is probably their best all-around hitter, and he's played 11 games all season, trying to come back from a shoulder surgery in the off-season that just is not coming around for him. So they may be in search of a bat as well. And then I know those are a lot. They'll probably end up having to decide which is most important, because they certainly can't address all three, I don't think, but we'll see. But certainly bullpen arm, I think, is the number one priority.
Jim, be honest, man. You got this gig, and you've had other gigs before, 10 years now. You saw Major League, and you loved the movie, and I'm sure there's a little euchre, up calling Tribe games and off the reservation, and you probably can have some fun with that. But I don't know that you ever really thought that you would see like a real live Major League Indian sort of seance thing going on there, huh? That was a fun story last week because I love that movie. Who doesn't love that movie, right?
Well, they've had Mike Napoli and Jason Kipnis they locker near each other, and there's a locker in between them. And really, since the start of the season, they've had the little idol Joe Boo. They've kind of set up a shrine in that locker, and so that's been there most of the year. And then when Jan Gomes was struggling so much, they decided to have a seance for him, and Joe Boo is prominently a part of that. But
did you get any of the chicken? Did you get like a wing or
No.
the leg? Nothing.
I think by the time that ceremony was done, you wanted to stay away from that. I don't know what was going on down there, but it was fun, and that's the type of team. This has been a fun team to be around. They don't take themselves too seriously. Mike Napoli's been a huge addition in terms of keeping this team loose and that type of thing. So,
well, not just that, he's hitting the hell out of the baseball too. I mean, I don't think we knew he had this kind. He might hit 40, man.
Well, his career high is 30. He's had some injury issues over his career, and this is the first time in a while where he's fully healthy, and it's showing. I mean, he came into the season being able to work out all off season without any issues, and man, is it showing, because, you talk about chemistry and some of the things that he means off the field, and that's not to be underestimated. But it sure helps when you're having the type of season he's having on the field to do some of the other things, too.
We are chatting with Jim Rosenhaus. He covers all things Indians and is on the road with the first place Tribe, Camden Yards all weekend long. 3 games in the blazing heat here. I mean, give me a little Cleveland background here. I mean, forget this convention. I'm not all that interested in that. But the parade and the Cavaliers. I mean, I'm talking to people in Cleveland this week. Jim, I talk to people in Cleveland all the time because we play the Browns. I have a lot of friends out there and foes, and, of course, the whole Ravens-Browns model, Ozzie Newsome, AFC North Triangle. But what a year for the city itself to be in the center of all of this. And now the Tribe are going to go on a run here. I mean, this is going to be an exciting September, and I don't mean with the Browns for Cleveland sports fans, because they're in this thing, and I don't know who's going to come and catch them at this point. It doesn't appear to be the Royals, quite frankly, right?
Well, they just got done with the series out there, and they took 2 out of 3, and they're starting to open up some ground, and it has been exciting, and it's interesting when the Cavaliers won the title. The Indians had come off a road trip and had an off day the Thursday of Game 6 of the NBA Finals, and I'm going to say, Nestor, I think half the team was there. Tito has season tickets, so he was there, and then all these other guys managed to get in, and they had a ball. They really did, and then the team was home when the Cavaliers won it in Game 7, and they were home for the parade. In fact, they had a game that night and had trouble getting to the ballpark because the parade route went around, it actually circled the ballpark. So a lot of guys are having a hard time getting in to play the game, but they did. And just that feeling of excitement. And I asked Corey Kluber about it. I said, is there any carryover? And he said, sometimes in the city of Cleveland, before the Cavaliers won the title, there's just this feeling of, what is going to happen next? A team's going to be good, but they're going to blow it somehow, some way.
They make movies about that, Jim. I mean, ESPN has 30 for 30 specials on that, right?
And they weren't lying.
Right.
I mean, the facts are there. But he said that by the Cavaliers winning, there was just a different feeling in the ballpark after that. They were still home. And he said there's just a different vibe of that feeling of, hey, you know what? The team is good. Let's jump on board and not feel like you want to stay away because something bad's going to happen in the end. There is more of a belief that something good can happen in the end because of what the Cavaliers did. So that was right in the middle of the Indians went on a 14-game win streak at that point, and they really haven't slowed down since.
Jim Rosenhaus covers all things Indians for the Indians radio team. They're going to be in Baltimore all weekend long. And you mentioned that parade, man. Look, I've spent more nights in Cleveland than I care to admit. Literally months off my calendar life there with the Orioles and the Indians and the Ravens and going out there for various concerts and stuff, because I'm one of those guys that elects to come to Cleveland. I flew to Cleveland in January by choice to see Bruce Springsteen, of course, but I did. And to see that many people down there, where were you amongst the mess there? I mean, I have to ask anybody in Cleveland if you were around for the parade. I think it was such a personal issue for everyone associated with Cleveland, even people like yourself that may or may not have been born there, right?
Well, the Indians had a game that night, as I mentioned, and I have 2 sons who big Cavaliers fans, so we said, let's go down and watch the parade. And it actually was great because at got in before everything started, and then we watched it from some of the upper concourses of the ballpark, which was a great view.
Oh, you had access, wink, wink.
But
Nice.
Because the parade route went on the streets that circled the ballpark, so being up high a little bit, you could see a lot better, and it was fascinating just to see all the different vantage points that people were trying to get to, and they had the barriers to keep people on the sidewalk. Well, but that was a non-factor after about 10 minutes.
I'm familiar with that. We had one of those here 3.5 years ago. It's a little frightening, quite frankly, really.
Well, you know what was neat was, there were so many kids there, and they would just run out into the street up to these cars that LeBron James was in, and Kyrie Irving and J.R. Smith, and go up and high-five those guys, and the police let them do it. I mean, they were just, there were kids who were doing this, and there was no ill intent or anything like that. And it really was kind of neat. I mean, it took forever for these cars to get through because of that. But what a great memory for teenagers and young kids who were just fans of the Cavaliers. That was pretty neat.
Hey, you know what? I don't hate on Cleveland. I'm happy everybody there. I'm not a LeBron guy, you know what I mean? But, hey, if that's the way it goes down, they won fair and square. You block the shot, you get the ring. It's as simple as that. How old are your kids, by the way? That must be, it must have set you back a little bit with the hats and the shirts. We know about buying championship gear here. It's nice when they win, but, you do have to bust out the credit card,
Yeah, well, I have a 13-year-old, so he's way on board with the Cavaliers. And then we also have a 4-year-old, so he just, to him it was just a big parade with trucks, stuff like that. But, the 13-year-old was all in on he's got his championship hat and all that kind of stuff. So it was really neat for him because, for so many people in Cleveland, they've grown up without a championship of any kind. So that was pretty neat.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty neat, too, that the Tribe's pulling away right now. I don't know if there'll be a race. Certainly in the American League East, it's a mess and a 3-car pileup literally going on right now. And all week long, I've said, if I were to somebody give me $1 and say you have to bet it on one of these 3 teams, excluding the Yankees, and let's forget about Tampa, I would bet on the Red Sox. Right now, I don't know how anyone could bet against the Tribe. I mean, are you feeling uber confident about this at this point? I mean, seeing them where they are. They're certainly doing things that no other team you've been associated with out there has done, right?
Well, there's enough baseball left to be nervous. I think that's fair to say. But here's the thing that makes you confident when you're talking about the Cleveland Indians is what's the biggest key to not having a lengthy losing streak? Good starting pitching.
Sure.
Yeah, as long as you have that good starting pitching, you feel like, okay, you're going to lose some games here and there, but you feel like with the starters that they have, that a lengthy losing streak that can bring everybody else into the race in a hurry, they should be able to avoid that. And they've actually slowed a little bit. I think they were 6-8 over a 14-game stretch since the 14-game win streak. So that's obviously below 500, but it's not like they went 2-12 during a 14-game stretch. And I think that's what that good starting pitching keeps you away from. And quite frankly, the 2 teams closest to them in the division, the Tigers and the Royals, they've had some starting pitching issues this season, so it's been really tough for them to get on the type of role that they need to get back in it. But again, like I said, there's enough baseball left where there's still enough games out there to be nervous about what can happen in the end.
Yeah, I know you saw that Kansas City party earlier, and I know you're very familiar with going out there when it was very lonely. An incredible growth of a brand, would you not say? What the Royals have managed to do, really on par with what the Cavaliers have managed to do in Cleveland, where everybody's got a wine and gold hat on, right? Kansas City has become nuts, and the team this year, the disappointment is probably pretty palpable out there, right?
It is, and I think they still feel they have a chance to get back in it. But, we were out there. The Indians played the Royals this week on Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday afternoon. A Monday night game, they had close to a sellout, 38,000 people at Kauffman Stadium, and it wasn't much less than that in the other 2 games. And it's just amazing because I was actually talking to one of the ushers, and he was saying it used to be where the game ended and he was home in 20 minutes because there was no traffic in the parking lot to get out. But now he says he kind of hangs around and takes his time getting out because he knows he's going to sit in traffic because the crowds have been so great. They're averaging better than 30,000 a game there, and the fans are wonderful. And they always said when they were struggling that if they can ever get good again, they thought that it's always been a good baseball town, but they had been so bad for so long that fans just didn't come out. But they thought if they could turn it, it would change, and it sure has.
You know what? Maybe the same could be said for the Indians. The same could be said for the Orioles. I mean, winning is infectious this time of the year. Certainly, it's certainly a downer in Baltimore with 100-degree days, and the Orioles in a massive funk right now. But I know the Indians weren't drawing so well last time we were out there. I think that when the Orioles were there, they were playing like Toronto or something at that point, or there was a game, literally a Cavs game going on simultaneous to the Indians game. But all that's changed now. Do you see that sort of momentum that maybe we even saw in Toronto last year start to build a little bit for the Tribe, as certainly the Browns aren't giving anybody a reason to run out in September?
Well, yes, it has gotten a lot better. They had a homestand heading into the All-Star break. 7 games, they sold out 2 of them. And I think they averaged about 25 to 30,000 a game, which is a big improvement over what they had been doing. So there's been an uptick in advance sales for the remainder of the season, and even people looking at season tickets for next year. So it's been such a positive time, and I think that's being reflected now in the attendance figures recently. I know the overall average is not real good, but it has improved in recent homestands, and they really haven't been home much. They're in a stretch where the Indians have 29 of 42 on the road. A part of it's because of the convention. They had to clear out and make room for all the politicians to be in there and do their thing. So they'll have a real nice stretch of home games now the last 2 months of the season after they get done with this series here.
Jimmy, don't worry, man. There'll be plenty of hot air here in Baltimore this weekend, too. You can't escape it from Cleveland or Philadelphia or anywhere in between. Jim Rosenhaus, official site of the Indians Radio Network, is at Indians Radio on Twitter, and you can follow his journey. He puts up a bunch of pictures of beautiful ballparks and great diamonds. Jim, have a great weekend here. Don't eat tourist crab cakes, okay? And, you may want to pack a fan. It's going to be a little hot and humid and muggy, just the way we like it around. It's perfect, like, crab and beer drinking weekend here as the Tribe comes to town.
It's summertime, right? It's supposed to be hot like this, so yeah, no, that's okay. It beats in the first 2 months of the season. We're always complaining about cold weather where we are, and so you can't complain when it's nice like this. Good baseball weather. Hey,
we'll see you this weekend. I appreciate the visit. Thanks for coming on with me.
Thanks, Nestor. Appreciate it.
You got it. Jim Rosenhaus, Indians Radio, out on Twitter, now 10 years as the voice of Cleveland Indians baseball. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net, anywhere in the world. Email, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. And, of course, in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day. For anything you miss, it's always there for you. It's one click away. You click, you listen, you watch. We're on Facebook Live now, as well as WNSTV on YouTube with a live stream there. Everything is cataloged and easy for you to find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault. Also, morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is powered up by our friends at PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life at Planet Fitness. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's powered up by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis is here each and every Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5. And Luke and I usually join him live as well on Thursday afternoon. And of course, this Thursday, Ravens training camp begins. We'll have full reports around the clock on our social media, as well as here at WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, where we never stop talking Baltimore sports. For the Baltimore Orioles, who've been kicked in the gut, kicked in the stomach, thrown off the side of the boat, and are now headed home, hopefully with lots of hydration and fluids for what proves to be a very